In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we talk to Metz from Lanschot Kempen. We talk about how to coach leaders to become better leaders. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hire, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to the latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm very much looking forward to my guest today. Ivo, it's great to have you.
Thank you. More than welcome.
Ivo, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you?
Yes, Ivo Metz is my name. I'm from the Netherlands, so a Dutch HR professional. I gained my experience in different industries, such as telco, tech, fintech, and financial services. If you look at my experience, I built a lot of knowledge in building a talent pipeline, transforming the business, but also a good signature on the total reward strategies. Privately, I'm a long distance runner. So for your information, I completed the Berlin Marathon last year. So
Wow.
That was a big success. I was very proud of it. And I'm also a big inclusion and diversity supporter, also privately. So together with my partner, Eloy, also well known in Germany, it's a famous singer. We are the proud fathers of a 13-year-old daughter. So we're a front runner from a diversity point of view as well.
Cool. Ivo, we have so many things to talk about. But first of all, I would be super curious to understand your journey in different industries. So you mentioned you had been in tech. Now you work in the financial services industry. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, of course, yeah. So in the early phase of my career, I started to work in the utility area, and that was and basically in the Netherlands, the whole utility business went commercial. So from a state-owned company to became private. So that whole transformation was super interesting. After a couple of years, I stepped into tech, TomTom, well known. So the whole navigation business was booming. TomTom just went listed, a huge growth, and basically, the HR agenda was managing the growing pains. So that's to summarize 3 tense years. After that, I stepped into the telco, so KPN, who also owned some German, Belgium, and some other companies in other countries. Telco business was also booming, a lot of new technology developments. At that point, it was also scaling down, so selling a lot of companies and reinvesting in our organization. And after KPN, I joined fintech, so Ingenico, now known as Worldline, one of the biggest fintech companies of the world. A lot of acquisitions, integrations, also a new technology that was launched. And finally ended up at Lanschot Kempen. Difficult to pronounce for a lot of non-Dutch people. So Lanschot Kempen, it's a family name. And now I'm currently chief HRO of this organization. It's a listed company, a boutique, a wealth management company. And I'm pleased to work here already for 5 years now. Yeah.
Right. So I hope you apologize if I pronounce it incorrectly. So it's indeed for non-Dutch people, it's very hard to pronounce. What you just mentioned, it sounds like a very interesting career. So when you arrived somewhere, there was already a lot of transformation, on the horizon, kind of visible, and obviously when utilities go public, there's a lot of change when you work in the tech industry. There's a lot of change when you have to, in the telco industry, you have to scale down, scale up, sell business. It means there is a lot of uncertainty amongst employees. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the communication or communicating? How do you deal with communicating difficult decisions to people, or sometimes they're not difficult, but they're just life-changing?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, the red thread in my career is indeed change. So a lot of transformation. It could either be growth, acquisition, and integration, or scale down, or a full turnaround. And for me, it's always crucial, HR and communication should be like a partnership. That's my first belief. And secondly, it's always important to be very transparent to people and to speak their language. So audience thinking. So what's the audience? What's their language? And make sure you will engage and involve them as soon as you can. And sometimes you cannot involve them immediately because, it's confidential, it's related to a takeover. There's an NDA related, but as soon as you can, be very transparent about it. Involve leaders and make sure you have a dry run. You have a script and a dry run. People are trained. They will broadcast the same message. So there's no gray area that will be introduced somewhere and people will start misinterpreting the storyline. So that for me is crucial to do it anytime. And in parallel, I'm a strong believer to co-create with works councils. Works council, Betriebsrat also in Germany. So very important to involve and engage them as soon as you can, already with an NDA, and to make sure they're fully involved, they can provide input so the message will be understood and accepted.
Can you perhaps walk us a bit through a timeline there? So I imagine it all starts with, well, very confidential conversations you have with some other C-level offices, like, hey, something is going to happen. We need to prepare. We need to prepare for the impact. And is that how things kick off?
Yeah. Well, the good thing is all the companies that I used to work for are also listed, and that also helps. When you're a listed company, things are already pre-written in some kind of protocol, legislation, or a policy that you agreed with unions or works council. So that tends to help. So that helps the discussion with C-level. And C-level needs to be convinced that involving people as soon as you can will always help. Just to give you an example, if there's an idea of an acquisition, HR is always involved as of day 2, perhaps not day 1, day 2, very soon. And why? Because you will do a due diligence, right? So you will look at the organization. Does it make sense from an HR perspective, from labor conditions, from a personnel setup, and so ever will, the cost related to personnel. So you're involved as soon as you can. And then there will be a certain point that you also need to involve the Works Council and departments itself to see, okay, could it be a fit, who to introduce, who to do some further investigation, is it a good fit culturally, from a process point of view, from a competency point of view. And then you have to make sure that people are engaging and providing insight if it will work or not. Just to give you an idea, sometimes, the business case can be perfect, but if we also did an acquisition where the cultural fit was not good, creates a lot of hassle, a lot of work. I did it in my career. So those insights are crucial. So I tend to do a due diligence on hard matters, but as soon as you can, and you've got data available also that explains you a lot of leadership, of the culture of the organization, you need to incorporate it as well, because there it can derail and then it can really undermine your strategy. Yeah.
Well,
similar to scaling down. So sorry, scaling down as well. So as soon as you would like to let go, etc., be very clear about it. The pitfall is that you tend to think that people will not accept, a bad message. And I think people are more than willing to accept a bad message as soon as it makes sense, as long as it makes sense, right? So if you can relate it to a strategy, if it's non-core and it will be sold or, it will be divested, people will understand. It's important that the way you do it is respectful. So also an exit of a department, an entity should be handled in a respectful way as well. Yeah.
Well, I think you mentioned a very important point there, given, well, even something that might be overall be very positive to the company can, on an individual level, perhaps be negative in terms of like, hey, we're buying very, very productive company that it's fits very well into our company strategy. However, it may annoy some people that have been working on something similar and now face competition within the same organization. So therefore, it's not always black and white, right? So even positive message, overall positive, can be quite difficult to communicate to some employees.
And don't underestimate also the cultural differences, right? So if multiple countries are involved, it's very good to understand, the corporate cultures in each and every country. And even within a country, it can be a challenge. We did once do 2 takeovers in India. And then you think, okay, 2 Indian companies, it will go well, but they have a class system. That's their way of cultural thinking, and that also led to a lot of challenges, to frame it positively.
Well, yeah. I can imagine, and you mentioned several times it's important to be transparent and to communicate well. How did you first approach this? So when you ran into the first situation when you had to communicate really significant, and I wouldn't classify this as good or bad, but quite significant change to employees. How did you first approach this?
So first of all, the message should be very clear. So from a strategic point of view, it should be spot on. Why are we changing something? Why are we stopping something? And why are we accelerating something, right? So that's the first message. Then secondly, multiple departments are involved. So it should be outlined clearly how each and every department will be impacted. So where will there be a reduction? Where will there be layoffs? Or where will there be additional budget to grow? And because quite often you're reallocating a budget to do something different. And then it's important, and then the communication department steps in, that you will script it perfectly. And that's super interesting, Benjamin, because as soon as you invite senior leaders to already prepare, their town hall presentation to their staff, there you see where the gray areas could pop up, right? So it's very good to coach and train them also. What will be the messaging? What are the Q&As? Make sure that the material will be distributed afterwards. There will be Q&A sessions that you script. And as soon as you manage that perfectly well, people will tend to accept it. When you don't do it, sometimes you're a bit in a rush. You tend to forget those important steps, and then the aftermath and the work related to the aftermath will be tremendous. And so I'm always pushing on, the dry runs and the scripting and the communication. Yeah.
Well, you just mentioned, it's important that, the managers have their script, have their presentation ready. I picture situations when you have probably leaders who are quite good in their fields, however, may not be created for a situation where you have to communicate very difficult messages. That does make them bad people, right? But for them, it's more difficult than for others. How do you approach these situations in coaching leaders, that in a particular situation, every word counts and every facial expression counts, that people who are directly impacted and who don't have all the information C-level has, that they know, they're in good hands, they're taken care of, and the management is in control.
Basically 2 things that we implemented. So I used a few examples up to now from my whole career, and now I will use an example also that's related to Lanschot Kempen. So at Lanschot Kempen, we did 2 things. First, we invested a lot in management skills. So the observation I had 5 years ago that, everything that was related to financial services was well covered trainings-wise. So people should be trained, etc. Otherwise, you're not allowed to do your job. And we went above and beyond. So if you look at a private banking academy, we've got the best private banking academy of the Netherlands for sure. So well equipped. And on the other hand, if you have to work with people as a manager, there was no training at all. And that just did not feel balanced. So sometimes you had, amazing talents that just did it, exactly what you said, facial expressions, right words, but also a lot of occasions it just didn't work out. So what we started to do for new managers, but also managers that were already in their position for a couple of years, we developed a management training, which is just a toolbox, right? So how to run a meeting, how to have a tough, courageous conversation, how to deal with illness, a performance management meeting, how to conduct a presentation as well. The toolbox that we think as a manager is important, and people had to go through it, and we did a bottom up, so it was on their request, and people just liked it because there were only our own managers from different regions, from different departments. So the side effect is they got to know a lot of other managers, and they also learned from each other, right? So in some business lines, they were just better at some things, you know. So the transferable insights were very useful. So that's what we did, and then it became also the norm. So it was a bottom-up approach, and then we were a bit like, okay, everyone should be doing it. So that's one. Secondly, what we also introduce is more like a formalized strategic plan approach. So every year, you know, we ask, you know, senior leaders to redraft a strategic plan, to look at, you know, the people and skills you need, the budget you need, and also how it will be cascaded into KPIs throughout the business. So that's also the starting point for our performance management and KPI cascade approach. And then the two things come together, and then you see some improvement. It's not perfect everywhere, Benjamin, but I'm pretty happy with where we are right now. Yeah.
That's cool indeed. And I'm wondering, when you train management and coach people who have been leaders for years, sometimes decades, how do you convince them it's worth spending the time? Because I think what we can all agree on, time is probably the most precious resource that managers have, and they of course don't want it to go to waste. So how do you do that? How do you convince managers to, well, accept coaches, accept trainings?
Support. And I think, you know, the training as such, we're using a supplier which provides high quality on one hand, but also very practical. You can apply it as of the next day. So it's not something very business school, high level theoretical. It's something that you can apply the next day. And that's how also what people experience. And we also see if there's a particular topic that was not covered by the training, there will be an extra class for the group. They love it because it's like a reunion. There's an opportunity, you know, to come together again, and you will get some extra content that, you know, obviously they're struggling with because that it's their request, right? So and then we provide them and just give you an insight. What we introduced recently is also, you know, how to deal with all the different generations that you have in your team, from Gen Z up until the baby boomers. You've got own personnel and you've got external personnel, I&D, you know, you've got people from multinationalities, ages, gender, you know, all kind of different flavors, and how to deal with it because everyone has different needs. That was a real struggle. We noticed it and we organized an additional training how to deal with that, you know, and how to do a sufficient take-in with your staff. And so the answer is, if it adds value straight away, people will make time for it. And that's how I think the financial industry works. If, you know, the return on investment is not perceived like that, people will just not step in. And coaching is also something that we renewed. So also we cleaned our coaching pool. We also aligned the coaches with our strategy, but also the struggles that managers have. So the coaching community understands what our needs are. And then we know, you know, who's good at what, and we will link them to the right managers. And we even provide coaches who are, you know, perhaps end of career that can help, you know, managers also, okay, should I progress my career inside or outside the organization? So that's an important. And perhaps if they are already a bit older, you know, perhaps it's also time to give space to a new talent and to remote or demote, whatever you would like to call it. I would like to frame it as positive as possible. So remotion sounds a bit better than demotion, but also to accept, because that's also a bit of mourning, you know, a new position that you can do for the next 10 years, but the next gen needs to step up.
well, going through that entire cycle of communicating and executing transformation, you probably, when the transformation starts, already have something in mind how the ideal endpoint should look like. And that, well, those people who are on board then, how they should be engaged, what kind of information they should have to exercise their jobs most successfully. How do you plan for this in the very beginning?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, quite often you don't have the precise end goal in mind. So I think that's where it starts. So you have the idea what kind of direction it should go into. So it should be left, that's clear, not right, as an example. But the exact endpoint, that's I think also, part of the process and the journey. And that's how we tend to approach it. So if you look at Lanschot Kempen, we're a small company, so we're large enough to cope with all the regulations and all the changes. But we're also very small, so 2,000 FTE. So personal relationships with each other and our clients is key. Yeah, so that's key. So if you translate that in any transformation, it means that we will, involve our clients, our staff, etc., in the journey itself. And that also helps because then you see their interest, what they value, and then it also helps you how it should be communicated afterwards, because then you know exactly, what are the triggers of, key stakeholders and how to address that in the communication. So what I learned, the journey itself and engaging with all stakeholders in, defining the end state is crucial. Yeah.
Indeed, given, well, when you have then reached certain milestones, and I really love what you just said, of course, well, one can't really say, okay, well, the transformation begins here and ends then. It never ends, right? So if it ends somewhere, it's probably in insolvency. But other than that, it's ongoing. So that well, all employees throughout the process and throughout the probably those climaxes of transformation, that everyone is engaged, and that one kind of feels the pulse of the organization as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so that's key, and we did also what we did, I think 4 years back in time, we renewed our full labor condition package for everyone. So we, when I joined, we still had still labor conditions in place from all acquisitions that we did. And therefore people did not change any job because you had the perfect pension scheme, I had the perfect lease car, and the other one had more holidays, whatever reason, you would not move, right? Mm-hmm. Where if you would like to introduce a new operating model, it's good to have some movement and to build some new teams and to ask people to collaborate. So then we introduced one pension scheme, one works council. We had also multiple works council, one social plan, and we also upgraded our labor conditions to be, let's say, the most interesting employer in the financial service in the Netherlands. So we completely renewed it. And that's difficult because you need to let go something that you've really valued. So you don't have that wonderful pension scheme anymore. I don't have the golden lease car, and your neighbor doesn't have the extra holidays. So all becoming equal. But that did eventually help because, everyone perceived we had a fair pay practice, where in the beginning it felt like you could negotiate whatever you wanted to have, or I wanted to have, or my neighbor wanted to have, right? So that's a major change. So eventually accepting a fair pay practice where it was transparent, visible, we had a job and career framework in place. The labor conditions were clear, they were available for everyone. So, and that gave a tremendous boost, also from the outside market, so people also knew what they could get in our organization. We were suddenly a modern, transparent organization that people really wanted to work at. Yeah.
Okay, turning a private bank into suddenly a modern organization, that sounds a bit contradicting.
No, but it is needed because you cannot run a wealth management organization without, an amazing enabling workforce. And on one hand, you have to have your compliance department, HR, legal, right? But, we're also a tech firm. So if you look at the investments we do in technology, it's tremendous. How can you compete with, look at we're based in Amsterdam, right? So Booking, almost our neighbor. That's our labor market competition. So you need to be very distinctive in what we are as an organization, the culture we have, but also, you have to have competitive labor conditions to attract those digital talents. So we've got Adyen and Booking as our neighbors. Can you imagine? And we still are well staffed from a data and from a data point of view, from data and programming point of view. Yeah.
I'm wondering, so, well, all that in mind, being an organization that serves, high net worth individuals, and that is also very, very tech focused. So how do you picture the future of you as an organization, in terms of what kind of talents should work for you? How do you engage people, in a world that's turning more and more to technology, but in your business probably also the personal relationship is absolutely key with clients.
Absolutely, yeah. So a few things I would like to highlight. If you look at the trends and the future of our organization, technology is crucial. So AI will be part of our business. And the good thing is, looking at our company size, that we are very agile. So we can include those practices immediately. So it's not something that we put aside of our operating model. It's embedded in our operating model. And if you look at our Investor Day presentation that was launched, I think 2 months ago, there you see it's already embedded in our day-to-day work. Highly appreciated. People are really looking at us as a best practice. So the size allows you to do some things and to really accelerate some new digital skills. So that's one. And if you look at the trends in our industry, there will be a wealth handover from a generation perspective. So that's very crucial to see. And what goes along with the wealth transition is that, the next generation would like to have more impact from a sustainability point of view. So that's crucial. And philanthropy is also becoming more and more important. That's also what you sometimes read in the magazines and in the newspapers. So that's something that we should also be prepared of. So how to support the wealth from one generation to the next in the best possible way, because that's a challenge as such. If you have 4 children, how to deal with it and what are their needs, and also knowing that the impact and the philanthropy is crucial. If you translate that into people, from a people point of view, we're a small, flat organization. So we assess people on 2 things. Is there a cultural fit? So for us, crucial. So beside being very good in what you do, we also believe that you have to be personal, either towards your clients or also internally, because that is really distinctive compared to other wealth managers. And we also believe in transferable skills. So not the traditional resume tick box. If you're also good in chemistry, for instance, you probably can also be a corporate finance specialist. It's just a matter of how you're framed in your brains, and then you can also learn other stuff. So then the cultural fit prevails, I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the testing for cultural fit, or finding out about someone's cultural fit, how do you think will this evolve in the next few years, given there will be of course new generations entering the workforce? We now have the generation that, the iPhone generation entering the workforce. In a few years we will have the AI generation entering the workforce, where basically knowledge was always absolutely available, and it's much more about how to apply your knowledge.
Yeah, true. Yeah, what we already do for starters, up until, let's say, 5-6 years of working experience, we start with an online test. just to assess a few things. What's your personality, your cultural fit, and your generic skills level. And we do that on purpose because we would like to have an unbiased recruitment process, right? So recruitment by default is biased. You cannot have, but the starting point should be as neutral and unbiased as possible. And that's an important starting point. So not looking in a traditional way at resumes, and also not looking, okay, you're male, female, Dutch, non-Dutch, whatever. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Well, we are all biased, right? So
we're all biased, yeah.
We would always love to hire a clone of ourselves.
Yeah, and that's, especially when personnel is one of your key values, that's an amazing pitfall. So our culture, one of our cultural values created our pitfall. So to avoid the pitfall, the starting point. So if you imagine you're a manager, so by this first step in the process, you will, for 100%, you have different resumes in your inbox compared to if you would have done it yourself. Yeah. But that's the starting point. Then the next step is still, then you're a manager and you will look at it at a biased way. So we said, no, you not decide yourself as a manager. There's a hiring pool, and the hiring pool is trained to assess one of the 4 important areas of that job. And they will just rank it. The ranking will be combined, and there will be an end evaluation per candidate that obviously will be discussed with the manager. So it will never be fully unbiased, but then the process forces that you will analyze the candidate in the best possible way from skills and hard skills, soft skills, and a cultural perspective. So that's something we do. And that helped us tremendously. If you look at, the transformation we went through as an organization, we've got, over, I believe, 40 nationalities working in our organization. Every department, also our enabling staff, has international people working, from an age, gender, nationality, whatever kind of flavor you would like to imagine, we have it. I can present it. Which makes us proud, because society is also changing. Our customer base is changing. So we have a strong belief that, you have to transform in line with society and your future client base. Yeah.
What do you think will be the top 3 skills for the next 5 years?
Yeah. So I think the top 3 skills are, for us, it is the CX, so the customer experience skill set. Because if you are in wealth management and the personal relationships are key, you have to think in a customer journey, in a customer experience, full stop. So that's crucial. That's number 1. Secondly, it's also about collaboration, because we have a boutique. So doing only what you're good at 40 hours a week will not make a difference. So you have to collaborate within the value chain, right? So that's super crucial. So that makes us distinctive, I think, to our competition. And thirdly, it's adopting, the digital skills. So those 3 will make a difference in our organization. Yeah.
My last question for you is, when you as a CHRO who has worked in many different industries, now in finance, how do you picture HR in 3 to 5 years? How will HR work? Which areas will be most relevant? What will people in talent acquisition, in payroll, how will their life change?
Well, I think HR, basically the answer will be related to my previous answer. But I think, an HR department will change from an employee experience point of view. So if you will not look at the competency itself and as HR competency, but you will look at the area from an employee experience and what are the steps that an employee will go through, being still on the labor market, applying, joining, and the whole journey throughout, retirement or exiting the company. That should be our scope. And when you look at it from that perspective, then you see that communication will be crucial, facilities will be crucial, housing will be crucial. What about hybrid working? Things like that. So the whole, competency area could be, extended by other departments. And I think that will be eventually where HR will be leading to. And if you had that as a chief HRO, whatever, chief people officer, or chief employee experience officer, whatever you would like to name it, I think that will be the ultimate goal of a true HR professional. And I really would like, if young talents are listening to it, think from an employee journey point of view and make it a better place for people to work. Yeah.
I love it. Ivo, thank you so much. It was amazing talking to you. Employee experience, employee focus. I really love that. Thank you so much. It was very inspiring.
Thank you for the invitation, and have a wonderful day.
Same to you, and thanks to you all listening in, and speak next time.